We're going to explore different layouts and how that they work in HTML and CSS. You'll see I've got a simple page here, and this does not match your assignment for this one. I'm showing you some different things, but you're going to create something that really does not end up looking like this at all. You're going to work with certain aspects of this. You're going to do a link button list out of a menu list where it's changed like this, and you're going to work with images and with the box sizing option, but you'll create your own different project where you'll have multiple sections for different images that you share. So you might have pet images, images of each of your different pets, so you'll have, like I have multiple sections here, you'll have 3 or 4 different sections of images where you're sharing images on flowers, pets, food, whatever, and then you'll have links that go to them. But I want to talk about the different code that I'm using for each section here. So you'll notice we'll start at the top. And I've created, my nav is currently an unordered list for images, lists, and divs, and I've converted this into an inline layout. If I look at the styling for this, you can see that in my nav list and list to list, I've got 2 places here where I'm doing the same thing. If you list them both with a comma between them, they get the same styling. So this means list items inside the nav area and list items inside the list to ID. They're both display inline block, which makes them display like this, with a list style type of none, which removes the bullet. I've done further styling of these, and it worked better for me to separate them because this is styling the anchor, the link portion of it. This is where I set the padding to 5 pixels. That gives me a 5 pixel all around. I could have played with that a little bit and done like 10px to make it a little bit longer. I could have done some other things in here to make them possibly rounder. And I could have styled them that way. So there's some additional things you could do there to make changes to the formatting there. I've put the line height in there as 3 because I wanted some more spacing between these and what was around them. So now let's look at the next section here. I have images, and in my index.html I've got my source here, and now I did edit these in Photoshop. They're actually set to square images of, I believe, 600 by 600 pixels. I could further modify these where I also had an anchor around them. If it'll let me do that in here. Nope, not letting me do it. But you could put an anchor around these and have them open into another page. So you should have alt tags describing these, and the alt tags describe them for people who are using browsers for the blind. So you've got your source and your alt, and then I'm styling them in the CSS. Now I don't have anything fancy going on here for the styling. This is just the default way that they will appear. I have, for my images, I've set them to a width of 10% and a height of auto, and that's why they are resizing responsively here, is because they are percentage based, not pixel based. And that's a good habit to be in, is to size your images by percent. Now you'll notice that these images and these images are the same size. The second section here with the 5 pixel padding, border, and margin, in my ID formatted, that's what's changing here. So I have formatted images, so images in that formatted section. It's got a padding of 5 pixels, a margin of 5 pixels, and a border of 5 pixels solid. And if you remember the box model, you have your content, between your content and your border is your padding, and then your border, and then between your border and the next item is your margin. So content, 5 pixels, 5 pixels, 5 pixels margin on this, 5 pixels margin on this. That means the entire width, if I was to count all of those, would no longer be 100 pixels. It would be 100 and 5, 10, 15, then you get a double it because it's on each sides. It's actually 130 by 130 pixels. That can be confusing, and you may not want to do math on the fly. You may want to think of the entire thing as being 100 pixels and having it adjust so that's your border box sizing. So this is my box size image. I've set box sizing to border box. You have some choices on that. Border box sets the border as the outside size so that everything, the padding and the border are included but not the margin. The default value is the contents of the box, but if you set it up to the border box, that'll include everything except for the margin. So you can look that up. It's a little bit easier to think about when you have the padding and the margin and the padding and the border included. We're still getting a margin between these, so it's got 10 pixels of space between each one, but the whole size of the image, the padding and the border now is 100 pixels. Then we're going to look at the lists. I've put this into a div to center it because there's nothing that makes me crazier on a web page than bullets that don't align, so I aligned them in a div with an ID of list 1. They're aligned to the left, the div has a width of 30%, and the margin of 5 pixels auto is centering it here. So this is just the way a list would show up if you don't make any changes to it. If we change it to an inline block and remove the bullets, inline block makes these turn into a block layout. Instead of going one line after the other, they're set next to each other, and it applies some spacing between them. And then we got rid of the list style type. Now divs are block layout by default, and you may choose with your images to put each image in a div. It gives you a little more control over your styling. If you are just to leave your div styling alone, and so we just have our default div layout where they're all class equals box, then we've got an inline layout. That changes. Inline layout doesn't let you have the width and height settings the same way. You get the boxes, but you don't get the correct sizes. And you'll see that the boxes are styled, so it ignores that width and height when it changes it to inline. So you can override styling and make it simply inline. There's very rarely a good case to do that. But if you do an inline box layout, now this is somewhat responsive because it'll float under, but it will just put them next to each other unless it needs to wrap them. And this is actually something that we're going to work with sort of as the basis of doing responsive design, to make your pages adjust when you resize them, which is the better way to do things. So it'll look right on the phone. So here we have the inline box layout, and we're using box 3 as our style. So we've got box 2, width and height is the same, padding, margin is the same, background is the same. The only difference we're getting between box 2 is inline, and box 3 is inline block. So you're going to go and play with some of these choices to make an image page for yourself. Please use your own images, or go to someplace like Pixabay where you get them for free that are royalty free. Don't just take random pictures off the internet.